the title of my charge is Speak the Word of God Boldly. Turn your Bibles over to Acts 4, verse 29. Acts chapter 4, verse 29, I'm sorry.
Let's go.
It says, "Now, Lord, consider their threats and enable your servants to speak your word with great boldness."
Nice.
You know, this is the charge that's been given us for the new year.
Preach, bro.
Speaking and sharing the word with great boldness. The only way to speak with great boldness is to be enabled by God Himself. And the only way to be enabled by God Himself is to spend time with Him in prayer and Bible studies. Spending time with God will make you bold. How is your relationship with God doing this morning? Have you made a decision for the new year to be bold in your relationship with God?
Come on, bro.
You know, when I get up in the morning, the first thing I do is I go and read. Now, sometimes I'll check the news. My wife will be like, something. But for the most part, I get up and I go straight to prayer. This is my life. And in the morning time, there's no messing around. Like Luz's out praying, I'm praying, and we're reading our Bibles. It's quiet time.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And I really put it before you that this year, make a decision to spend time with God every single day.
Come on.
Come on, bro.
Are you on fire this morning? Where are you at as you sit here this morning? You know, there's times when we organically rise up to be bold for God. And there are times when we are thrust into situations that will force us to be bold.
Yeah.
Whether we want to or not.
Right.
Whatever your situation is, I want to encourage you to rise up and be bold for God this year.
Yeah.
Let's take chances as we share our faith.
Yeah.
Let's take chances and spend more time with God. Let's take chances in our relationship with God and fast and do radical things so that we can hit the goals that Kwaku so eloquently shared at the beginning of service. Turn your Bibles over to Judges 21, verse 25.
Come on.
All right, let's go, Ryan.
Let's go, bro.
Come on, bro.
Judges 21 and verse 25. You know, here's a situation where people were thrust into a situation where they had to rise up and be bold, very, very much similar to Esther. And Judges 21, verse 25, it says, "In those days Israel had no king. Everyone did as they saw fit." You know, Israel had reached a place where people were not following God with all their heart anymore. You know, our ministries can get there sometimes. And we got to see the signs before they do and speak the word of God boldly.
Amen.
We got to call the situations for what they are.
Come on.
You know, I remember such a time back in 2006, shortly after I'd gotten restored in Sacramento, the movement that I was part of, which was the International Church of Christ, had fallen completely. I was literally setting up my own restoration studies. There were honestly sisters having interest in guys in the world.
Wow.
And it was known throughout the church. Brothers were dating sisters that weren't even coming to church anymore. There was no standard of discipleship. It was kind of like you could have a good time, but then you don't have to. It was kind of like a taboo type thing to talk about. I remember studying the Bible with a young man. I had gotten him up, and we had done the light and darkness study, and it had begun to talk about and confess sin. I came to a midweek, and a brother had preached the light and darkness study and said that we don't need to confess sin anymore. And I was like, whoa. I said, wait a second, I got to say something now. Like, this is just gone too far. So I pulled him aside after, and I'm like, hey, bro, we preached this for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Where am I missing something? I just spent like 2 weeks trying to get this guy to be open, and like everything I did is ruined now. And basically at that point, God had shown me, I was like, wow, like we had fallen. The glory had departed. And it just wasn't a safe place anymore in the kingdom. Shenanigans were not getting sorted out from the pulpit. You know what I'm saying? I think we take that for granted. Like, we have some bold ministers in this church.
Come on.
We have people that are willing to preach the word and get in your life and help you out. Man, I'm telling you, it was rare. and take a stand for God. And God put me in a situation, obviously being in that church, where I had to rise up and take a stand for His Word. Which leads me into my first point. It says, what is the elephant in the room that no one is talking about?
Talk about it.
Yeah, I believe what caused the fall of ICOC is we stopped speaking the truth in love. It was no longer a safe place to bring up concerns constructively with a healing heart. Pointing out someone's sins might mean you might catch something out in the parking lot, like I don't know, something might hit you or something. I don't know. That almost happened to me. That was my experience. I just don't do fake. I got to keep it 100. And nowadays, I'm grateful for discipling and the people in my life, and just learning to appreciate the different flavors of people that God will bring into my life. I'm learning to be grateful for that, because there's something you can learn about from every single person that God puts in your life. You know what I really appreciate about Kwaku? He actually gives the best advice. He's like one of the best advisors in the kingdom. He really is. Just give it up for Kwaku. He's like the Simba. Turn your Bibles over to Matthew 7, verse 3. Matthew 7, verse 3.
Amen, bro. Preach, bro.
Matthew chapter 7, verse 3, it says, why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there is a big plank sticking out of your own eye, 2x4? You hypocrite. First take the plank out of your own eye, then you will see clearly remove the speck out of your brother's eye. Funny enough,